when I was driving out, I said, well, I was
Sherry, is Russell going to be here today? Okay.
Russell and Krista.
all right.
and
So
Kathy.
I
You were right. You were right.
very rare, but
He was jacked.
we need to have him come out, and Jason's been going down to the river, just tromping through the river. And
Oh, yeah, that's fun.
I know.
How was your walkthrough? Did you go to that?
There was no air conditioning. There was no air conditioning. We're very
all of you guys came from that?
We're dying.
Sorry.
We're dying. Don't be sorry.
How are you? It's good. It's going to be fun. The way they both ended up upstairs is good.
Test 1 2 1 2 test 1 2 1 2.
Took away the ability to slide down the banisters. They both make some.
On purpose, I'm sure. Slide down the net.
Test 1 2 1 2.
Yeah, and if you catch longer release,
Doing all right.
I guess they run into other kids. And
Yeah, apparently the kids think it's funny to watch the officer doing it. And somebody did get really
Okay,
hurt.
it's not on
Well, then
now?
that explains it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
But that one is so. That one is.
Really, if that's the worst.
Test 1 2 1 2.
Yeah, that was. So I tried to talk him into putting in a big fire pole to slide down to get from the second floor to the first floor.
1 2 testing 1 2. Is yours on right?
Test, test, test.
Fire poles are a little wider than those poles.
It's a course at UNLV.
Is it really?
21-2-304, which is English Language Arts, Mathematics in grades 3 through 10, Science in 4th grade and 8th grade and 10th grade, and post-secondary readiness. If you notice, K-12, 310, however you want to look at it, they focus English, language arts, reading, writing, and math. Science has become much more important to our accreditation process recently. This is a recent addition. And so we've added science as a rotation in our specialist program in our elementary school. It is now a tested subject that we are held accountable for.
So we are still doing specials in elementary?
Yes, and we'll show you
Okay.
that. So our instructional program is also influenced by our Common Core of Knowledge and Skills requirement. In other words, we have to teach those knowledge areas and those skill areas. And we have to squeeze them in, and literally it is squeezing them in. This is representative of our K-5 school day. We have 175 student contact days, which is the requirement. We have 185 contract days for our teachers, but we have to have 175 days. Right now, our elementaries run from 9:05 to 3:40, which is 6 hours and 35 minutes, or 395 minutes per day. These times have been established by our teachers, our principals, and district office in terms of minimum expectations. Our new ELA program, CKLA, we require 120 minutes. That is language, reading, writing, speaking, listening, and word attack skills. We have 70 to 90 minutes of mathematics every day, 30-40 minutes of win time daily, and what that is the idea with our PLCs. If students are not getting it, how do we reteach? If students are getting it, how do we provide enrichments? And our classrooms have multi-abilities from kindergarten through 12th grade. You'll have some that can read as kindergarten students and some that do not recognize letters as kindergarten students. And our expectation is we get them all to meet those knowledge and core areas. And so that's why the WIN time is being built in. WIN stands for what I need. So it's an individual approach to students' needs.
Thank you for David's benefit.
Yeah. There is 45 minutes of lunch and recess. We have a 75-minute specials, which is media, physical education, music, STEAM, and technology. Just kind of a plug for our district and something that, as a board, you should be proud of. 75 minutes of paid planning time a day is unheard of, K-5. And it's what we've provided for years. It's up since 2006 when we added art back into the system, but now it's maxed out at 75 with these rotations. then I'll keep going. We have 30 minutes of social studies we expect, foreign cultures, language K2. If you recall, we've actually kind of pushed to have the foreign language K2 SALSA requirement removed because it is an unfunded mandate. It has to be incorporated in other things. It takes time. It's more cultures than it is language. It's language development, but it's more culture-based, and we're not sure if it's an effective use of that time. But right now, it is a standard that we are required to teach. It's statute that we are required to teach. Social skills program is a second-step program in our elementaries, and then we have a 15-minute recess brain break daily. Some of you have been on the board when we've had groups of parents, large groups of parents come in and demand additional recess time.
Yes.
And how that came about, that wasn't a district directive, even though we were credited for it. A school made a commitment, they wanted 15 minutes additional time, so they didn't have an afternoon recess. Came back that the district cut their recess, which that wasn't the case, so now this is a requirement, that they have a lunch recess and at least a 15-minute either recess or brain break. It doesn't have to be in the afternoon, because we have grade levels that have specials in the afternoon, so they take it in the morning.
And that was something that came about the first year that I was in this job, in this capacity, with a group of parents. We had parents, teachers, myself, principals, meeting, trying to decide how much time is enough time, and that was what was agreed upon. So from a district level, you had the 45-minute lunch and recess as well as the 15 minutes. At the building level, then, they have some flexibility beyond that.
So if you look at the overall program, our district has made decisions. Basically, what we have is we have to prioritize those knowledge areas and skill areas, and this is what our priority looks like. Our priority in arts have focused around performing arts. We have a music program that is unbelievable. Most K-5 programs do not have music. Our district, our community has made that choice to focus our art program on performing arts. The visual arts, and I guess I'll get to the next slide. So when we talk about art education, our K-5 focuses on performing arts, with the understanding that we still have to teach those standards of visual arts. And if you look at the standards of visual arts, we're meeting those expectations K-4 already. When you get to 6th grade, there's a dedicated art teacher, it becomes a rotation, and we hit the rest of those K-12 art standards at that time, visual art standards. There is no restriction on our teachers that they cannot teach visual arts in the classroom, and many do. As you walk through our halls, you can see many projects that are always posted in the halls. There is a restriction time. They have expectations they need to teach. That's why some of those were flexible. You may be able to teach a math lesson in 70 minutes, not 90 minutes. That gives you 20 minutes in the day to do something else. STEAM is science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. We've added this to our rotation, and we are currently working on integrating art into our K-5 curriculum.
And let me tell you how we've done that. Talking with one of our art teachers, or our science, art, STEAM teachers today, really an integrated approach to this. When I asked her, and it was the science teacher at North who I visited with, she indicated that we have been doing curriculum work and building into the new science standards. We're required to have those adopted and in place. We have our units in place already. They've taken the art standards and they've built those in. And she said at least one of those designated times in each unit is an art lesson. Now, that art lesson may be around landscapes as they're discussing that. It could be around shapes as they're building that into the sciences. They build lines, they build in shadowing, creating within space. Those things are done, integrated into the science piece. So that's that STEAM approach, and that's what they're doing. She indicated about 20% of their time is spent there. As they move forward. It could be a little different in other schools. I didn't call all 4 of our elementary STEAM teachers. However, I think she's a pretty good representation of that.
And that's why we even listed it this way, is we're continuing to build those priority standards in science. This will be our 3rd year. And our emphasis will continue to be STEAM, and we want to see those art principles taught and integrated inside the curriculum, and integrated anywhere. And that's, I think, truly the benefit of what CKLA has provided, our new reading program. It infuses social studies, it infuses art. Some of the areas that STEAM will not reach would be, and I would say art history, well, that's picked up in our CKLA. So it's integrated in our other curriculum areas. Just to continue, and then I'll open it up for discussion, we do have a lot of art in our after-school enrichment programs.
That currently exist.
Currently exist. And they can be expanded based on need and want. Typically, those are kids sign up for classes they want to participate in. Our summer programs, we're very well aware of programs that we offer, but also our community offers in terms of the MAT Camp, which gets into summer enrichment programs with art, and activities at home. I guess my point in all of that is that's the challenge that we have, is prioritizing these into an educational program that meets the needs of our students. The expectation that the school will provide all of that knowledge base, if my expectation as a parent that the school is going to do all my learning for my kids, it's flawed. My responsibility is to teach my kids reading. I support them in math. I support them in art. My kids have different likes and wants. And I think that's part of the activities at home, is the expectation is that education just doesn't end when kids are dropped off at the school. That's not just where it begins. Is I think we're in a position where we want to support what parents do at home, but we have to make choices.
So, I mean, I know that certainly we have to focus on the core subjects, the way the statute's written, and I know that the teachers and principals have been very vocal about, please do not take away our win time. That's critical to doing the work that we've been doing with high reliability schools. And we do have the performing arts already incorporated into the specials.
Correct.
And STEAM is also a part of that. And what I guess, because the perception certainly is that we're not getting any of the visual arts or fine arts, but we are. It's just incorporated into the other science and STEAM. And
It's an integrated approach in that STEAM program.
CKLA.
As well as CKLA.
Right, kind of thing. I'm glad to hear that we have some after-school enrichment programs. I wasn't aware that we already had those. So that makes me happy that, does everybody have availability to sign up for those if they
All
want
kids
them?
have availability to sign up for the classes that are offered. For example, they'll open up a session, and it's usually a month to 6-week session, and the teachers offer different classes. The way that class runs is there has to be a minimum number of students. So, for example, if 12 kids, I know when I was at North, we had 12 as a minimum, the ideal being 15 kids in each one of those classes. So in order for the class to run, there needs to be a certain number of kids. And I know our teachers would go out and advertise whatever they were doing.
Trying to get enough
kids to sign up for what they...
What's the cutoff age?
What's that?
What's the cutoff? How many kids?
The cutoff could be anywhere. We ran a sports program that was Sports for Life, and during that program, we had anywhere from 30 to 40 kids every time.
Oh, wow.
So it depended on what the kids wanted to do. So again, it was based upon their interests, based upon the need. We had art-based programs and activities, and I would venture to guess that the principals could tell you that there are those that are currently happening. I couldn't tell you exactly what they are at this point in time because I've been somewhat removed from it.
Well, and those after-school enrichment programs, they're funded through...
It's a combination,
grant,
yes,
And
with
we
BOCES
supplement.
and us.
Because we asked if you could have volunteers that could come in and teach, because I'm an art major, come into the schools, and they told us that, no, it has to be a school teacher for insurance purposes and different things like
And
that.
for the grant qualification?
Yeah. So we fund that at, is it $80,000?
About $75,000.
$75,000. So we're, again, it's a good
Well, it's a
good
partnership,
yeah.
but because
And
of
it
that,
is
we
our
can't
teachers
have
that run it. And
volunteers come in and do that.
that's probably, after-school programs aren't for every student.
Right.
I can tell you that by the time school's out, my kids had it. And some, there are no places to go, so they stay. There are reasons you do that, but there are programs that I think would be choice-based. Our principals are here, and I'm not throwing them under the bus. We did warn them, but you're very welcome to ask them questions about this. The program that we talk about, our instructional program, is talked about constantly in terms of fluxing, how much time do we give here, how much time do we give there. It's based on the programs that we have approved, but it's also input from our teachers. That input flows to our principals, and of course, the principals
So
let
if the
that
teachers
flow
say,
to
I need
us.
120 minutes to teach what I need to teach in English or CKLA.
If you recall,
then
we had maps that were developed by a district group,
Right.
and our teachers couldn't stay within the maps.
Right.
And that's why we've gone to this PLC concept, where now those first grade teachers are all talking about what they're doing and how they're doing it. So there is more of a uniform approach to what's happening in our first grade classrooms across the district. But specifically at the school level, there's a lot more time to talk about what's being taught and how it's being taught. So-
Well, and originally, when we had discussions about this, because this was one of my concerns, is that we were not getting the proper art instruction in the elementary schools, is that when we started social studies and science, and we're focusing on those core subjects, is that those teachers would try and incorporate, okay, we've got this social studies subject, we're going to incorporate
An art
this
project.
subject into an art project.
Right.
And, you know, I mean, some teachers probably do that, but where they're given the flexibility, some teachers probably are not. And so some students are getting it and some are not, and that's my concern.
You just described the idea of a guaranteed and viable curriculum. Why we're
Right.
working on that is, you have teachers that love math, so they spend
Right.
110 minutes on math. They don't really like reading as much, so it's only, that's the part of, we need to have some uniformity.
Yeah, and I
That's
understand
what-
that, but just so everybody knows, that was part of our discussion
Sure.
when we were doing this, is that art would get incorporated into those subjects somehow,
Whether
either through a
it's, you know,
project or...
science and doing something with
Yeah, or
plants
social
and an art
studies or
project,
whatever.
or social studies, or all of that, we wanted that incorporated.
And I think our community is pretty loud and clear as they support the arts at a very high level, which to me
Yes.
is impressive. And we have not, I guess, shunned away from our responsibility and duty, but again, it comes back to prioritizing.
So as we come up with these standards, and you're working on STEAM and coming up with how that's incorporated, I mean, you're keeping in mind, obviously, exactly Jenny's concern, is that as we come up with this, all teachers are incorporating these projects at these levels, and then we're not just getting a hit and miss shotgun kind of approach, right?
And that would probably be better answered by our principals, I think.
Okay, okay.
So, principals?
Well, here, Tammy has a question here first.
I have a
Okay.
question that's not
Okay.
related directly to that. So, conversations a few months ago about pushing or getting more technology or laptops in the younger ages so, like, we all know that it's there, we all know that it's happening, whatever, and it's being used like it's supposed to be used. Would that negate the need for media in our specials rotations and free up some time for us?
Again, it's all choice. It could. I think library media is linked to our computer skills now, too, but it's a big part of our reading program. And when the librarian works closely with the classroom teacher, there is I guess, an
Media,
enhancement.
the computers portion of it is part of our reading program?
Could be, yeah.
There are things that
it?
are touched base during that, some of the programs that they offer.
Well, I'm just curious, like, if there was a consensus from the board, like, yeah, we want an art program in our curriculum, where could it go?
Well, again, the flexibility, you could add time to the schedule. And you guys have seen
That's another option.
how that goes. That's an option.
That's not happening.
Next option.
It's not a positive option.
Plus, we're striving to integrate what the state just put in. We have 2 years to do that under the computer science area. To pull back what we're doing with media, we're moving in a whole different direction with media. So media and
So
technology.
media is really not going to be media anymore, it's going to be computer science.
They'll do some reading, and they do enhance reading, and they increase the love of reading with kids and a lot of the things that they do. But part of that is going to be, as well, moving into the national standards for media, which include more of a computer science-based coding, that kind of thing that is built into it.
And that's why I answered the way I did, because that media time, they do a variety of different things.
Well, and
They
it's
could be
really
given a
hard,
math lesson.
Because Tammy's right.
Or an art lesson.
Where could we put it? And I mean, the minute we say, okay, we're taking that 15-minute recess, then we have the recess group come in and scream.
really?
The recess group is the same group as the art
It is.
group.
It's the same.
It's the same people.
But that's the thing, you have a limited amount of time, and so it's decision-making.
How do
Well,
you-
and that's
How are we
the point
going
I
to
was getting
split
at.
that
These are the
time up?
12 areas by statute. If you prioritize them for yourself, and then you prioritize them for the kids, the list would be so different. And that's the challenge we have.
Yeah, nobody wants to add time to the day,
Correct.
but it's like, where do you add all this extra
Well,
stuff?
that's what I'm
that
asking,
we're-
like, where
Yeah.
are, I
You
mean,
would have to give something up.
what
So
about the sister time to science, the worksheets time, or the time that we spend doing STEM scopes on the computer?
Part of that is where this STEAM, it's
It's
built
getting-
into it. So Summer would teach, as she was describing it today, she would teach the concept during her time. Then they would go and they would actually do some of the hands-on things as they moved in with that paraprofessional. And they would do the hands-on, that's when they would actually do some of that creativity and building some of the things and utilizing that.
Because my understanding is that that time is either spent doing worksheets or on a computer. From my children.
Okay.
That's what they say.
I couldn't tell you, I haven't been there for the entire 75-minute block, I just know what
But
I...
that just may be a
I
teacher
agree.
by teacher kind of thing.
It is.
And because I know for Krista, she's voiced, that kind of hands-on, especially for science, having that kind of hands-on curriculum and, lab time is really important as well.
And Clark Elementary does not have that second piece, it's taught by the same
So
teacher.
I guess what I'm saying is, sounds like there's a way to do that and incorporate that into those rotations through other
That's what we're
curriculum.
striving to do, and integrate them.
Right
But we
now,
need to
it's
get-
integrated in the
And
state.
I'd love to have the principals sort of address this, but how do we get everybody on board with that and all teachers
Well,
doing
and
that?
that's why I listed it the way I did, is that's part of those science teachers, elementary science teachers, as they work together in their PLCs, that's what we're asking them to do, is come up with a defined, consistent, guaranteed curriculum that they're offering.
And they
That
have it in
includes arts, and they're building that. But just like the issue we have in every classroom, you have teachers that have things they like to teach and some they don't like to teach. They focus on areas, that's
So I'd be all
some of the
social studies
issues.
and no math. All right.
Yeah, and I'd be all science, and a lot of it. Again, that's the difference. That's why we're trying to work with these PLC teams, to have teachers focusing on what they do and how they do it. We're not there with the STEAM curriculum yet, but we're moving that direction. Like I said, we've had 2 years really where we've had that in place with teachers that are fully certified. So you're right on the point that we talk about, is what do you give up? In the day that we have now, what do you give up? Something has to go. And that's probably one of the loudest things I hear is teachers are saying, please don't add anything else. If anything, if you can give us more time to
Well, the only
have
thing
some
I can think
flexibility.
of is somehow finding a balance between the performing and fine arts, and I don't know how you even do that.
And trust me, you'd have some parents come in about that.
Yeah, I know we would.
And if we said we're not going to do computer science, you'd have parents who would come in around.
Well, and now that
But
that's part of the
we
core.
leaves a question mark over the media time, like the computer time spent in media then. If we are and we will,
And
Then
again,
what's-
from my experience, that computer time and media is more enrichment. So you are hitting all the content areas. Can it be modified? Yeah. But again, that's one thing that we're trying to do, is we're trying to revamp our media time to meet the expectations that have just been added in computer science. Our media people will have to be more computer-centered. Right now, the push is coding, K-12. If you're not having kindergarten kids code, you're not providing them what they need to be productive citizens in the future. It's
Says
been
the Wyoming
pounded
Board
down.
of Education.
That's what the legislators have said. That's why it was approved and passed, in opposition to a lot of people who stood up and voiced, no, let's focus on what we have now, reading and writing, math, and the other areas.
but coding can really be as simple as a program on a computer. I think that's what they're doing right now in media, right? To incorporate
Partly,
coding.
but that's not all
into-
they do.
Some of that, and some of it is to enhance reading, to support the things that they're doing within the reading core.
And math.
computer science because I've got a computer sitting in front of me and I can type a few words. It's really understanding the concepts, designing around really the whole idea of design thinking. As Superintendent Thomas talked about coding, being able to, and it's not just a program. You can't just say, hey, you're going to get on this. It's that hands-on, tangible at a kindergarten level, being able to understand patterning and saying, okay, what is a pattern of A, B, C, C, D, E, what does that start to do? And so it's really that hands-on patterning opportunity that eventually gets us to where middle school and high school kids are familiar, almost like a foreign language. They can look at that code and be able to say, you know what, that program, it's going to do this, this, and this. And as Superintendent Thomas alluded, I don't know if our legislators truly understood what it was that they pushed through so quickly, and
Of course they didn't.
and the mandates that requires, because as the state's learning more about this, all of a sudden that 20-minute time that's in that media time, because they've got 20 minutes or, you know, by the time you look at transitions, 20, 25 minutes where they're in the library checking out books, doing the things that they need to from that literary point, and then that 20, 25 minutes in during that media or the technology part. You know, you got coding. We've talked about keyboarding. That's been an issue. You know, so if we take that away and put something else in it, when do we keyboard?
Right.
Or do we add another keyboarding class? You know, so what do we give? So robbing Peter to pay Paul.
If you look at even the Common Core skills, computer applications, they were always there. And it was like the legislature ignored that and added it again. So now it's almost, you're not going to be hit twice. But that's kind of the approach, is we're going to see how do we incorporate that in what we currently do.
Okay.
So we don't have to, I guess we could add another rotation, but it is an interesting situation when you talk about the length of the day. And I've brought this up and we've talked about it, is the elementary day is about 29 minutes shorter than the high school's day. So that's 29 minutes a
It's
day.
a long day for kids.
And that's, when you make that comparison, you're truly comparing apples to oranges.
Right.
Because the expectation of one teacher that teaches all these core areas, they need planning time built into their day.
Right.
So we've built it into their schedule, and there's an expectation that they have 29 minutes extra in an 8-hour, they don't even, again, I think it's 7 hours and 4 minutes. So we pay them on an 8-hour day. So some interesting
Okay,
issues.
so I want to hear from maybe the principals who you say know better, how the teachers are now building that curriculum, building that,
Well, the curriculum itself, we're building,
right?
and the implementation in their individual buildings. I
And
think
how do
they
we
would-
get all the teachers on board so that they're all doing the same incorporation of fine arts? They're sitting there and so I want to hear.
Madam Chair, members of the board, so what I've heard is we want more time on computers, and we want teachers to add one more thing to their plate, and maybe we could add time to the school day? Is that what?
Don't put that in the paper.
Sheila likes me too much. She won't do that.
That's not what I heard.
So it is an interesting conundrum, and so I'm only going to speak for Una Meadows, and that's it. CKLA has absolutely added more art integrated and science integrated into the curriculum. Okay, so kudos to our teachers to do that. No, we can't add one more thing to their plate, and there truly isn't time in their instructional day outside of specials but their core academics of the day. With the pressures that are put on us from the state with state testing, we simply can't spend less time than what's up there and expect to be schools that are high reliability schools that are meeting expectations or exceeding expectations and targets in all those areas, and those are all goals that we have that are supported by you as board members. I think that we do have to look within our specials rotation and see where are we getting the biggest bang for our buck, and I haven't done enough digging into it to say at that second science portion during STEM scopes, is that where we do it? Do you do part of it there? Because some of it, Tammy, is worksheets and some of it is on the computer. All of it is not. There are art things that are done. Is it somebody who really knows art very, very well? No. Right? So are we teaching them art or just giving them an opportunity to do something artsy? I think there's a difference there, and I think
Yes.
teaching the kids how to be artists, which I know nothing about, but I would love for my own children, if they're old enough to have that.
It's like, horizon lines and perspective and shading.
Phenomenal.
Those kind of things that would be part of teaching the art.
You bet. I would love to do it. So as a principal, I guess I stand before you to say that I support that, and I want to look at ways to integrate that. And for me, again, for Una Meadows, something I was just talking to Kimber in the back about how to do this, and she's going to share with you, I think, something they're taking on or doing as well. I need to look at that second area of media, the computer lab time, but we have many parents, come to board meetings even, and to me, go, okay, Jared, so now they have to do writing on the state assessment, and it's all typing now, and long-winded responses, and it's all keyboarding. So how do we expect our scores to increase when we're not practicing typing with them? And anyway, and then along with coding and other things that are being done and the new legislative mandates that have come down. So it's a balance. And so maybe I'm being long-winded and I do not have the answer, but I don't think the answer, I would stand behind the answer not being in the classroom on a teacher teaching art separately. I think we have to look at our specials rotations and just maybe get creative and think a little bit outside of the box with the amount of time we have for specials. And we have 3 rotations right now. How do we do something with the rotations that we have to uniformly make sure that art is being taught? It's already being integrated in very, very good ways and quite a bit, but I think we can do more to strategically make sure that every kiddo, K through 5, is being taught art twice a week, once, twice, 3 times a week, whatever that rotation looks like. So anyway, I don't have all the answers, but that's what I'm looking at right now.
Going to like music class, performing?
Once every 3. For our school, K and 1 go once every 4 days because we have so many sections. We try to split them up so a specials teacher doesn't have 30 kindergartners.
So with each school then?
Depending on how big the grade is.
And then for us, 2nd through 5th grade, get a rotation once every 3 days. So the most that they would get art if we integrated it into specials would be once every 3 to 4 days. But that's outside of what's being integrated. And it is being integrated, but I would like to see it more. They have a specials rotation for 70 minutes every day, and in that 75 minutes, they're split 35 and 35 between 2 different specials. So they're getting a very well-balanced diet in terms of their education. Guys, it's phenomenal what our students receive, but a uniformed approach to teaching art is missing, and maybe uniformed isn't the right word to say. It's integrated into what we do, but we do science, we have media, we have library, we have PE, we have music. Those are awesome. I'm going to be honest, we don't have art. So how do we get a little bit, even 30 minutes a week, something, I'm okay with that. I just want you to know I support that. I would look at how we can maybe fit that into our schedule without adding things to teachers' plates and eliminating some mandated things and just other things that are good. If you get rid of keyboarding and typing, we can't get rid of that. We just can't. And I know there's a big group, and I don't blame them wanting to get away from so much time in front of computers and things, and I agree with that. I understand that. But at the same time, there's things in front of computers and keyboards that we just still have to do. It's the day and age that we live in, and the state testing is done on computers. Now our kids have to be prepared on computers to be proficient typers and keyboarders and all those things. So, I don't know if that helps at Una Meadows.
It does, actually. Kimber? Yeah. How are you guys doing it?
So I just want to echo, even as a parent, I feel like our kids are getting, my own students are getting a well-rounded education. But at Clark, just to kind of share with you the way we are incorporating some of the art, and it's not like a formal art instruction. And so I guess that would be a question too, is like when we're talking about art, is it like the technical part of art, or is it just the opportunity and experience to create art? I mean, because there's a difference. At Clark we have our after-school enrichment, and art is a rotation. When we have reflections around that time, that becomes part of the after-school enrichment. Kids get to go and create masterpieces, as you can all imagine, that go home and hang on the fridge or whatever. As well, though, Clark is lucky enough to have a Mr. Brian Richens. He's our media and technology specialist, and he is all in when it comes to making the media center a relevant place for our kids now in this time and day and age. And so he's already reached out to me. He's working on his media specialist endorsement, and so he's in turn taking a lot of classes. And most recently, he's had a class around the idea of makerspace. And so at the end of last year, he came to me and said, I want to do this. I'm still working out the details, but I want to do this. So in the meantime, he sent a Google Doc out to all of our 4th and 5th grade students and asked them, like, what would you guys want to make? If I gave you some space in the media center, which he's worked really hard trying to clear out the stuff from 1980 that has been kind of accruing in the media center, to make space for a usable area for our students. And they came up with all kinds of things that they want to make. The coding was one of them. They love to do that. Another thing was knitting, and I think that goes to Mrs. Boyer because she's our music teacher as well as a knitter. They talked about Legos. Art in general was one of the things that they would like to make. And so as part, kind of like what Mr. Dastrup said, as part of the media, Mr. Richens' idea is that he can address the new standards coming within the time that he has. We don't have a media/technology. When they go to media, it's media, and then they switch and go to PE. So they have the 35 minutes. We only have a 4 rotation, so we have media, science, PE, and music. And so every other day they get the opportunity to go to media. And so his idea, and like I said, he's still working out the logistics, but we're going to sit down next week and kind of hammer out like what are the resources that he would need, and then continue looking at the media center space and figuring out what that looks like. So that's how we're addressing it and looking at it at Clark.
I mean, it would be nice if you could add to specials rotations something, but then again, what I worry about is not having enough time for science. If you're only getting it every 4 days, science and technology every 4 days isn't going to be the same as science and technology every 3 or every 2.
Right.
Well, and that's, I think, the other part that needs to be discussed is the research on all those areas are as strong or stronger than art in terms of expectations for reading, writing before their 3rd grade, being on grade level. Science and social studies.
I mean, it does seem to me that there's, especially like in science, when you're talking about things like horizon lines and perspective and that kind of stuff,
or even like Tammy and I were talking about like a color wheel. I mean, you could do rainbows, the science behind that,
and that what turns white, what turns black when you mix colors.
But it does require the teachers being creative and integrating that into.
So I think there's a way to do that, but again, we need to have it sort of uniform. What do you think?
Sure. So yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add because I think a lot has already been said, and we've looked over everything a lot. One of the things that I heard is, we can throw up, more onto our media people to teach more, but I know at Aspen, my media people currently teach Spanish, they currently teach coding, they currently teach keyboarding, they currently teach a lot of stuff, and so it's not like, okay, well, we'll just pour one more thing onto them. Well,
that wasn't exactly what I was suggesting.
Right.
I was just saying because we spend so much time in class on computers, can we use that time for something different?
I do. I think if you were to go in and see how much time kids really spend on computers now, it's a lot less. I mean, with our new CKLA, there's like very little time to be on a computer at all. A lot of things we used computers on in the past were, and we still do it a little bit, so if kids don't know their multiplication tables, back in my day, we had flashcards, and that's how we learned. But now there's just some fun computer games that get kids really literate on the, multiplication tables, and there's other things, so like, if some kind of a geometry standard kids were deficient in, that's what we use the computers for. Is okay, we taught the lesson to you, let's let you try it and practice it on this computer program. So I think of a lot of things are that way. I don't think there's a whole lot of time really spent having kids just like on computers. Typically, it's just to really practice the skills that they need
And
help with.
I do think that's an important point to make, is when we talk about screen time and the research behind screen time, typically you're talking about time that is just, and I'll say wasted, where they're surfing the net. That's not what happens in schools. There's an instructional purpose behind all those things. If there isn't,
That's a problem.
that makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. As bad as hearing that we're just doing worksheets in science. That is even worse. I keep putting my hair down.
I can bring my child in here.
No, I believe them, but that has to be discussed and worked on. That's not okay.
I'm curious to hear other opinions about what Brian Richens is talking about in terms of, maybe clearing out all the encyclopedias in the day of Google and having a creative workspace in the media center kind of concept. What do you?
Yeah,
Maker spaces are really popular out there now.
Right.
Again, it goes back to time and resources. I love the concept. The ones I've seen, I'm very impressed with. It takes someone like a Brian Richens to start exploring it. It would be easy for me to say do it, but you need someone who is going to get in and dig and wants to,
Right.
because it takes time and effort,
What's the time?
and it's also resources.
Well, and that's, because I think, certainly, I can speak for myself, and obviously other board members can speak for themselves. If we could find the time, if we could find a way, whether it's through an integrated curriculum that everybody's doing, or through media, or however we do it, if we can find the time, I think I'm certainly committed to finding the money. John, get on it. Because I don't want the money to be the hindrance, but I do think the time is a real
The
struggle.
time has always been the restraint on us.
Yeah.
With the stuff coming from the state and just how much more can we fit in without extending the school day? And, like we talked about, you would have more than just a group of parents.
Some of
in
you
here if
remember
you
the
extended
15 minutes that
school
was
day.
requested by Aspen
I do.
to provide some additional reading time, and holy cow.
vocabulary.
Yeah, vocabulary, holy cow.
Which their teachers voted to do at that time.
Their steering committee did, but
Yes.
apparently that was where some didn't
There was
feel
some
like they had a vote in that. So anyway, that's water way, way, way under the bridge. But my point is, that is really a touchy subject, adding time to the day, even equalizing the time. Again, if you were comparing apples to apples, you could do that, but you're not. The different expectations between elementary and secondary, I think, make sense why we do what we do.
Okay, so now I want to add creative dance as part of the PE curriculum.
Well, it's interesting, because when we talk about choices, when I was at a middle school in
Part of the
Utah,
brand.
they had piano. You could take piano lessons at school, paid for by the school. It was something the community wanted, and it was done. Again, you get into some of those things that gets a little fuzzy, but our instructional program was developed over time by us. It is reflective of us. And I'm sure it will continue to adapt and
Who is
model and
us?
mold.
Who are you
The
talking about?
district.
The district.
District.
Our teachers, our principals. And that's part of, even when we adopted CKLA,
It was a process.
it was a process of how much time will this take, and our
Well, and that's
math
why
programs.
I'm really sort of encouraged by the work that you tell me is being done in terms of the integration. I guess my question for you is, knowing how long, it took us, well, I've been on the board almost 3 years, and it took us that whole time to get some of this curriculum. How quickly could we have sort of a viable curriculum that does that kind of integration?
They have already taken the visual arts standards outlined by the state. I have them here. They have taken those and incorporated them into the unit planning during the science time. Now, whether it's being done exactly the same at each school, I can't tell you that.
But that's part
But
of
I
the
do know
PLC
that
work is to get that.
it has been done, and it has been.
So we've got sort of the standards, we've got sort of the
We have
curriculum.
unit plans that are developed, and.
So now it's a matter of getting all the science teachers on, or all the teachers on board with how to teach that.
And the one area that they haven't done, and again, CKLA will do that, they have a unit on the Renaissance, and it's a great unit. Some of your kids may have been in. During that unit, they learn about Da Vinci, and they learn about Michelangelo, and they learn about those things in the history and the movement and what it means for what art does to represent the time that you live in and the place that you live in. It's a pretty powerful unit, as well as you go down through each one of those units, they have what they call think, write, and draw, and that's done often. And again, that's not teaching formally how to be an artist, but again, it's incorporating that creativity, giving the kids an opportunity to say, here's what this particular word means to me, and I'm going to visualize it and I'm going to draw it the best that I can. Those things are incorporated currently in
the
our CKLA program.
But now we're doing it also in the science.
The science program is a STEAM program.
And as a former dance major, I'll get it in PE.
And my commitment to that
After school enrichment.
is to provide our teachers
We do
the
have some-
opportunity to go and to receive training in that STEAM area and to really learn how to incorporate that and to build that in.
And that's why I answered that the way we are currently working on that. But our curriculum in science is a STEAM curriculum. That's the expectation.
It's a work in progress.
It is a work
It
in
is.
progress,
Like,
thank you.
it's, I mean, I was told 4 years ago that it was incorporated at that point, and it wasn't.
We're working very carefully to do that. I can tell, and I can show you the documents where it's built in. Now, it's using those
You just ask the kids.
to move your
if it's
instruction.
there.
Or if they perceive it as being there.
If it's, if they're doing art.
I think
kids are.
the challenge
good
with,
point.
the challenge with that though is,
Your kids are at Aspen.
My kid is.
Okay.
if you ask
And
them
maybe
flat
it's the
out.
teacher, but my kid is.
No, absolutely. And
If
it
you
was
ask,
emphasized that at Aspen, they may be doing some different things. Each one might be, again, it's trying to bring that guaranteed and viable curriculum to each one of the schools.
Right.
and that's,
Well, and that'll take
that's,
time.
yeah, and that's the challenge is when you ask, are
That's what I wanna
you
know,
doing
how much time?
interpersonal communications? Most kids won't know what that means, but those skills are incorporated too. Creative thinking, critical thinking, problem solving.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily taught in a class or taught we're going to learn problem solving today. It's incorporated in everything that we do.
So if we've got that sort of concept down and we have the built-in curriculum, is it going to take another
It
year
should
to
be
get it
happening.
through the PLC work? Is it going to be another 2 years? How
I think
long is it
what would
gonna
be
It should be
fair is to
incorporated
have
next
our 4 elementary science teachers make a presentation in a couple of months.
Yes, please. I think that would be.
One of them is going to be brand new, but she was also the para. She's now the teacher there at North, but she did some of that work.
And talk to us about how they're
Before.
bringing that in and what they are teaching and what they aren't teaching.
How they've integrated it.
And how they're integrating it.
Yeah.
I would like to hear that. Would you? Or no? Sure. Okay.
Personally, this is one of those things that's really near and dear to me. I have a fifth grade grandson who's going to loves art, and I have a piece of his art framed in my office. He would have loved to have had maybe something in addition, but he's doing those things. Art is, I think, as to anyone here, I think it's important to all of us. Where would we be without that aesthetic value and the things that are added because of that? So again, it's back to resource and mostly time, not necessarily even dollars, but time, and using the time the best that we possibly can.
Yeah, I
I
don't
think
think
we can find
anybody
an answer
disagrees with
to
the
that.
research. I don't think anybody disagrees with the concept. I don't think anybody disagrees with funding it if we can find the time. So I guess that's really the question, is how are we going to do that? And if we don't have individual time, how do we still get there?
It is an interesting situation because we can measure 3rd through 10th grade how our reading is being taught, how our math is being taught, how our science is being taught. What we can't assess until these common assessments come around is how STEAM is being taught,
Right.
how social studies is being taught. It gets incorporated, and even the idea of keyboarding and computers, it's not less that we need, it has to be, we have to have our kids prepared to be able to test. So it's not a keyboarding issue that's preventing them from demonstrating their competency on the test.
Maybe our people have something to say.
I was going to say, unless the board has any other questions, now that the parents and the people that wrote to us have heard this, I mean, we'd love to hear from you guys and hear kind of what is and is not working.
Can leave that first. We need a little bit of art while we're talking about art. There you go.
Thank you.
And art is therapy. I have to tell you, I had a coloring book all through law school that was very therapeutic for me, so there.
So my name's Jessica Kendrick. I have an incoming first grader at Aspen, and then 2 more little ones at home who will be coming up the ranks. And so, yes, I want to speak strongly in favor of bringing back art. I know we historically used to have it, and so I think finding the time again in the schedule is important. As I've talked with parents across the district, I get a resounding yes, we want this. I have had a couple ask me, why is it so important to me? Isn't the art they're getting in class enough?
Tell us who you are first.
Jessica Kendrick. I have a first grader at Aspen.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, she did.
So, and while I appreciate any and all efforts that our teachers do to integrate art into their classroom, like we've talked about, depending on the individual teachers is going to leave students behind, and it won't be balanced and equal. Plus, there's so many different kinds of art than drawing or coloring, like we've talked about. And drawing and coloring are the easiest to incorporate into your regular teaching, but if we just leave it with that, then we're missing out so much. I don't remember very much about my elementary school experience, but what I do remember is my art classes. I don't remember any of my teachers' names except for my elementary art school teacher name. Her name was Dr. Rice. And I remember what we created. We did sculpture, we did soap carving, we did paper mache. We learned the difference between Impressionism and Pointillism. I remember how frustrating it was to make the little dots in my painting, and by the end, I was just doing wide swatches because and it made me just appreciate it so much more, what we were studying. And so these are the things that are going to stay with our students, beyond their time in our schools. And I still have many of those things I created. Those are special. The desire to create is one of the deepest yearnings of the human soul, and so that's why I think we really need to give our kids those opportunities. We've talked about the benefits, are all things that we want: elevated student achievement in reading, math, enhanced student motivation and engagement, improved attendance and critical thinking skills, and that's not even the end of the list. There's motor skills, language skills, social skills, decision-making, risk-taking, and inventiveness, and we want all of those things for our kids, and I think we're missing out on one of these key tools by not having dedicated arts
So what would
class.
you give up?
Well, I think we can find the time in the specials program with that worksheet science class time, or maybe in the media. I think we had room in the special schedule before for it.
So
and
you
I think
agree we can't really give up something, but maybe integrate it better into how we do the specials?
Yeah, that would be a compromise, but I think eliminating that second science that maybe isn't being as utilized as well as it should be could be an option. And my child, I would say, is not an artist. He does not seek out those opportunities, and he does not like taking risks at all. And so he needs to be challenged and pushed, because he's not going to seek it out in the classroom setting. He's not going to, be the one that runs and say, "Oh, yay, we get to draw and color." He's going to sit in the back and kind of bide his time till it's time to do math. And so he needs that kind of environment where he's encouraged to take those risks, like you can in art, where making mistakes is almost encouraged, because you can just, the creativity can keep expanding. And so that's another reason why I think art is so important, and something that he's not getting because he's not seeking it out. He doesn't push him the way that way. And so, I agree, all of our specials are special, but this is a key piece that we're missing. And so one of the quotes on the bottom of it says, if you spell earth without art, all you're left with is eh. And so, my plea is, let's give our kids more than that education by making sure we're integrating in art everywhere and anywhere that we can. So, thank you for your time.
Hello, I'm Sarah. I am a mom of 5.
Congratulations or condolences, I don't know which.
Depends on the day. Depends on the day. My daughter is an art fanatic. What she wants to be when she grows up is an artist, more than anything. And my son, who's this little mathematician, loves art. He actually got honorable mention at the national level for the PTA art competition. So, both my kids went to state. And one time a year, it's not enough. It is not enough. We have been in 3 different districts in the state of Wyoming, and this is the only one that does not have art.
Or the fine arts, anyway. They have music.
Well, we have music. We've had music everywhere, and we've had art everywhere. This is the only one that can't find the time.
So, well, and
I would say if you take 5 minutes from each of our core things, 5 minutes to increase creativity is going to make a huge difference. The last district we were at in elementary, they had about 10 to 15 minutes of recess every 45 minutes. They were out playing all day long. Their grades and their testing and their behaviors in class, minimal. They had the best behaved little kids. I went in and volunteered all the time, and to be honest, I never saw a student act out. We had perfect little children all the time. And I'm going, who are these people? I was in there every day volunteering, and these kids were amazing because their bodies were so busy. But they did art constantly having art, and there is a huge inequality with the teachers.
But how do we, right, I mean, but if the teachers are telling us that, because, we've got some really intensive new viable curriculums that they have to teach, and they're telling us, no, don't cut my time, this is what I need. I need this win time, and I need this instructional time, and this is what it's going to take to do it. I mean, it's really difficult for us as a board to say, I don't care what you need, we're going to take 5 minutes away when I can maybe do it a different way.
Well, I would say my children could easily lose those 5 minutes to make them more creative and more able to listen. Me personally, if you ask me to sit still for an hour and not have me do anything with my body, I'm like, yeah. And my kids are that way completely. If you ask them to sit still, we have behavior problems. My son gets a little squirmy and he breaks the keyboards because his little fingers just go, 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 go. It has been a hard problem for my daughter. My son had art. His teacher included art.
So are you
She
able
didn't.
to take advantage of any of the after-school art or anything
When
like
we
that?
talk about after school, we're also talking about losing family time. With homework.
You are.
With homework, with travel time, with everything. Right now, on a regular school day, I get about an hour with my kids that we're not doing homework, we're not traveling. When we're in sports, we lose that whole hour anyways.
What about, like I said, and forgive me, I'm just...
We do.
I mean, as somebody who has kids that really love art, I mean, are there opportunities in town for art lessons to take, from people like Jenny or whomever? I mean,
So we did MAT camp.
Okay.
We try to find as much as we can do, but also with 5 kids, you're looking at expenses anytime you're outside of school. And that's also, how do I get each kid to each different thing for their age group?
Yeah.
And so it's a huge stretch if I'm trying to do it all. I try to provide as much art supplies at home. I mean, we have crafting dough, and we have paint, and we have crayons, and we try to do as much, but it's not enough to not have it at school.
So what about the idea they were talking about with sort of the creative corner as part of media? Would that help, hurt?
That would help, but I think a lot of it needs to happen as they're teaching in their curriculum. It's not happening right now in the older kids. Like 3rd, 4th grade, the last 2 years for my daughter, it wasn't happening. The teachers may be encouraged, but they're not making it happen.
Good feedback.
My 1st grader and 2nd grader, the last 2 years, he had it.
Okay.
And he would come home with art projects, and my daughter would look over with just a sad face going,
Because he got it and she didn't.
yeah. And I know that she has much better attention span when we're doing something with art. And so when you find something that, okay, here's a creativity, and then also like think of Bob Ross. Look, it's a happy little mistake. You make a mistake and you make it something better because you made a mistake. And in math, you make a mistake and it's a mistake and you screwed up. In science even, in science you get to have that like experimentation. Okay, now how can we do things better? In art, mistakes are good. And kids make mistakes. Adults make mistakes all the time, and they're not given that opportunity to have mistakes be good. And so sometimes it wears down on them, and they come home going, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. And having a time at school where they make mistakes and they're applauded for it would make a big difference to my kids.
Thanks. Like you say, you see our struggle.
Mm-hmm,
how
completely.
we get what we need to do statutorily, how we how we meet the needs of the teachers to teach the children.
I'm married to a teacher.
Like I say,
I see his struggle.
We're doing the best we can. I'm excited to hear from the specialist teachers how they can incorporate it. I would, obviously, when they present, I would hope that you would come back and listen to that. I agree with your concern that we need to be consistent in how we do it. And so, I mean, that's the challenge thrown at you, Dr. Ingalls. That's your area, so.
Children with art are more creative on solving other problems.
I don't
We
think
need those
anybody
two
would
brains.
disagree. I don't think anybody on this board disagrees with with the research and the concept. It really is a matter of time, and how do we do it?
So.
We're working at solutions and trying to think outside the box.
And with the after school, it's not art every day. It's a switch off.
Okay.
And so it's a rotation. So you have an option of 2 or 3 different choices each day, and it switches.
Okay.
And so
I could
if
say
they
that
have,
that could be dependent upon the registration. If you had 90 kids that wanted to register for
it's not a
art,
registered one at Clark. We have a list, and when they go, and if there's something that, there's 2 different options, like, oh, we're gonna play games, or you're gonna do something else. Sometimes,
Okay, thank you. This is good information. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you for considering this.
Well, again, I think we're all committed. We know what you sent us. I mean, nobody's disagreeing. And if we can do it, we want to find a way to do it. It's just, we're trying to think outside the box on how.
Pulling those little times.
I don't know if that one's going to work, but I hear you.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Bird Gilmartin. I have a little girl who's going to start kindergarten at UME this fall, and a little guy at home who will be following behind her in a few years. So I hear a couple of themes in tonight's conversation, and I kind of want to speak directly to them. One of the things that was presented that I think is helpful is the Common Core of Knowledge and the Common Core of Skills, because those are the statutes by which the district and the board and the teachers and everyone are held to. And in that, you see number 5 is fine arts and performing arts. And then in the Common Core Skills, problem solving, interpersonal communication, critical thinking, creativity, and life skills are all some of the things that are heralded that in our education fortifies, brings, and strengthens. And so I see it as a great partnership of kind of what are our statutes and what can we do with an art program. I don't see it as a conflict. And I also hear a lot about time, which I will get to. And then also then down to the accountability standards and the Wyoming Accountability in Education Act. And those state tests and things that our schools are accountable to and our principals are accountable to and our teachers are. And I think that that's another partnership with an art program is what is one of the things that we know boosts scores in these core subjects: math, reading, language, art. Dedicated art programs boost scores. It is one of the only things that has been proven time and time again over decades and across economics and races and all those things to do that. Hammering kids for longer time periods and having them sit still for longer and drilling them in those core subjects doesn't boost their scores, but art does. And so when we're thinking about how do we create these balances between our statutes, between these time constraints, between our accountabilities, I think that an art education, a dedicated art education, is one of those things that helps put all those pieces together and solve some of those problems.
So does it have to be a dedicated art program though, or can it, I mean, what we've talked about is the incorporation. So, I mean, I don't think anybody would disagree that sitting kids down and drilling is a good way to teach. Nobody wants to do that. And so what we've got with these new curriculum and having these integrated kind of concepts with the English language arts, with the science, and having that integration, I mean, I understand that you're advocating for a dedicated program, but can we get those same concepts hit those same goals with that integration so that we really are blending them like you suggest?
I think an integration would be wonderful. My concern is that I hear a lot of disparity among what happens.
Which is a concern that we've expressed, obviously.
Yep. And I also, in my profession, I talk to kids all day long. That is what I do. I'm a pediatrician. And I ask kids, what's the best part of school for you? It's a standard question for me. It's not a weird question. And their answers are routine. They like gym. They like that. And then if you ask kids, what would you like to see in school? They want to see art, and they don't think they have it. And that is day after day after day after day of me talking to children. And so that's one of my concerns, is that if we think we have it, I don't know that that's translating to the children. And their perception of what happens in their school day. And that's a concern.
Correct.
And I think that the principals have addressed this, that the teachers are full. Their plates are full. And so I think there has to be, that's one of my concerns about the integration is, okay, do all of these 10 things and now do this one more thing. And as we've spoken to, different people have different strengths. Right. And so, if you're in my class, we're going to be doing science experiments like all day long. It's going to be awesome. And I don't do art personally. My brain doesn't work that way. And that's a shortcoming of that integration model, is saying, now we're going to add one more thing to your plate.
Well, and that's why I'm really curious to hear, from the science teachers like Dr. Ingalls is talking about, because if it is through the science curriculum, through those specials, and we've got these 4 science teachers in the elementary schools kind of doing this, how are we going to do it so the kids recognize it's art? You're right. Mm-hmm. I don't think they are recognizing it. And so that it is consistent, so that everybody's getting the same thing the same way.
I would also say that another concern that I have is that when I look at my lower resourced kids that I take care of, I'm not talking about my own children right now, but my lower resourced kids, they don't have these things at home. So while I think I 100% agree that education is a continuum that doesn't start and end inside of the school. It's in our community, it's at our homes, it's in our religious institutions, it's all those places that we educate our children in. When I look at my low resource kids, they don't have scissors, they don't have glue, but they do have tablets. They all have them. They have tablets and they have phones, but they don't have Play-Doh, and they're not doing paper mache, and they don't have scissors. And so, in all honesty, I want it desperately for my own children. Yeah. I also really care about it for the kids who that continuum doesn't necessarily extend in that full way at home. And I think back to, just this recent spring, we were at our kindergarten meeting for our daughter, where they were getting us excited as parents, and we were trying to not cry, and
I want that one.
and they were talking about it, and the teachers that were there, the kindergarten teachers that were there, and the resource teacher that was there, they spent the bulk of the time talking to us parents about they have so many children anymore who cannot write, who cannot squeeze Elmer's glue bottles, and who cannot use scissors. And those are some of the things they hope they're going to have by the end of kindergarten. For me, that is eye-opening. I mean, I left that meeting shocked that one of the take-home goals that is being expressed to a body of parents for our kindergarten kids, kindergarten-ready kids, is use of scissors, not being able to squeeze Elmer glue bottles, and they can't manipulate writing materials. Wow. So for me, that speaks to a need for that we're going to really say, okay, kids, it's construction paper, we're going to cut it out, we're going to cut paper mache things, we're going to do all those things and build those skills. And those occupational therapy skills, and all of that, it all contributes. And that was what the teachers brought to us. That was not the parents doing that. That was them talking to us about what we can do to get our kids ready for kindergarten. And I think that that speaks to a gap and a need in our education. And so, you know, I think here in this conversation, it really seems like there's these three pieces of the puzzle that have to be fixed. The money, which we've kind of set aside, of we can figure that out. The resources and time. And time is this big one.
Time is the big one.
And so when I look at that, I think, you know, you don't want PE to go, you don't want music to go, you can't have science go, you don't want media to go, you don't want recess to go, you don't want any of that to go. But I do think that there is creative ways, which is the exact thing that an art program is going to bring to us, to say, can we take 2 minutes here and 2 minutes there? And if we give those 2 minutes to art, are we going to actually feel like we gain 10 minutes because the kids are going to understand the concepts better, and understand the math better, and understand the reading better? Because we've approached it in another way that speaks to different functioning brains and brings us all closer to that. And so that would be my request and plea of the board, I guess.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks for letting us speak. My name is Ryan Gilmartin. I'm Bird's husband. My daughter will be attending UME in the fall. I'm a former art educator. Until I moved to Wyoming, that's what I did. Now I'm a stay-at-home parent of a very creative little girl. And I don't want to beat a dead horse. This has been, a lot of the stuff has been said before, but I would like to reiterate what you and my wife said about pulling a few minutes from each place. 70 to 90 minutes for math seems like a lot for a kindergartner. I think it's a lot. I think the second science class could get a little bit, and I think I am advocating for a dedicated art time. And here's why. And so I think you can pull enough to get one class a week out of what you already have. From, again, I haven't entered this yet. I'm just starting this, but it seems like there's time. I think, again, this is the first place I've been where there's not an art program. So if we want to get outside of the box, we just can travel and go look at another program and figure it out. I don't think that's that hard. But here's what art does. Art is, at its essence, it's not drawing or horizon lines or shading or anything. At its essence, it's form and content. That is what art is. It is an idea expressed in a body, okay? Instead of thinking about trying to squeeze art into all of these other programs, into math, what if we go the other way, at least for an hour a week, and we say, how do we put math into art? How do we put science into art? I think that would be a resounding improvement and a way to get people to, and our kiddos to think differently, to expand their education. Okay. I also am an advocate for I'm a recess parent too, yes. There is something that is inherently important about letting children just be creative and play, not just outside with balls, but inside with crayons. That is why a dedicated art space is important, and an art time.
Of the media center kind of creative space.
Creative space and creative time and creative instruction. Yes, a dedicated art class.
So let me ask you this. I mean, it's not like we don't have any art, obviously, right
Sure.
now. We have the performing arts and
Sure.
in music, and I think that does a lot of what the fine arts does as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and it's one of those things that this community has said we want to prioritize, at least at the elementary level, the performing arts over the fine arts, and do we need both? Is one enough?
Yeah, do both. And here's why. You know, do both. Do as much as you can, because you guys have all said you agreed with the research. You guys have all said that all of this is all positive.
But that's what I'm saying. So the research says, you know, but it doesn't identify which kind of art, and that's what I'm saying.
Yes. So as much.
or an exclusion either.
Yeah,
It's
as much as you...
As art.
Art, as much as you can, as much as you can. We don't, there's nothing, there's hardly anything in it. So yes, as much as you can. And here's the other reason why having more dedicated art classes and more art teachers are beneficial, because when you talk about the consistency across the schools and among the classes, if you have an art teacher at each school, they can help the other teachers try to incorporate that stuff into their classes. That can help bring about a consistency, which is one of the problems you identified. So that's why I advocate for a dedicated art program with a dedicated art teacher and dedicated art time. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Again, we appreciate you guys bringing this. It's not anything we haven't heard before. It's not anything, quite frankly, that we as board members haven't asked about or raised before. It is putting the pieces of the puzzle together. I don't want to say that we can't do something. I don't know what that creative solution is going to look like. I know, Dr. Ingalls, you're working on it. I'm really curious to hear how we're going to do it or what we can do. Principals, certainly at the elementary level, and their teachers certainly can weigh in on this. I don't think we're done with this discussion by any stretch of the imagination, but I appreciate the puzzle pieces, and we've got a really big fat one called time that needs to be looked at, and I think the others could probably go from there, but I don't know that it's going to be able to work as a dedicated class as much as me personally would love that, because I liked that in elementary, and I remember doing the dots, and I really liked it, but I also understand what we have to do statutorily and what the teachers are asking of us, and it's a tough balance. It's a really tough balance. That's why we pay you guys the big bucks.
Jaron Dennis. So, community member now. This goes for everybody. I'm just kind of curious, because I think we can recognize as a district we do have a dedicated art program. My question is at what stage when's the best time to introduce it? When is at our middle school, because as we all know, we have a dedicated art program at our middle school, and one that continues in our high school that have really grown. And so when is the best time to put in a dedicated art program?
Right. When can we integrate and when can we dedicate?
I think K-5 is what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, I think the request is introduce it at K-5 as well as 6-12, and that's really the challenge is, do we do that, or do we integrate? It's a little easier to integrate fine arts than it is music.
Yeah, and we're grappling with, because you're right, we have a dedicated music program, and so, at what point, and I guess the other question I would have, and this would, something that we as a district could look at a little bit more, we talk about the research, and I'm, coming from a music background and the importance of music, and that's all fine and dandy. Does our middle school and high school scores reflect that because we have that program, are we seeing what the research is talking about?
Well, we've never taken it away.
What's that?
We've never taken it away, so we wouldn't know.
Right. But I guess something that we would need to look at do we see an uptake in our test scores because we now go to a dedicated fine arts program, 6-12? Do our test scores, do they indicate that we see an uptake? And that then would correlate to saying because now they have a dedicated program, does that help?
I don't think we've ever not had a dedicated art program 6-12, right?
Right, but if we're looking at our research, and I'm not trying to be the naysayer here, but if we're looking at our data, our maths ELA test scores should go up because now I've got that dedicated time in middle school. devoted to art.
Right.
Because we've had that creativity, we've done those
But there's
types
not-
of
but
things.
I'm
You're
right?
saying individual students should.
Shouldn't.
But I think what
yeah.
Tammy's saying is that we don't have a comparator, Jaron, we don't have a baseline to say this is what the scores were without a dedicated art program.
We take our 5th grade scores and we compare them to our 6th grade
We
scores.
could have a baseline if we implemented a fine arts program in the elementary.
Or you take your 5th grade scores that doesn't have a dedicated program and look at your 6th
They have
grade.
dedicated music versus the dedicated fine art. And so
They would have both, so you should see an uptake in both those. Just something to throw out there and think
I
about.
feel like the integration is a really good idea because I know that kids' brains work when their hands are working. Like that's how they learn. But I think that's how all elementary should be. Like their hands should be on things and they should be creating. And I also think that there should be a separate art program, and that we should find time. Like if I had the executive power to say, this is what I want to change in this district, this is the only thing that I have really wanted to change from day one, is that my kids are little artists. They love art, and my son in 1st grade knew immediately when art was gone. Like that was something that he picked up on, and it was a sad day in our house, and it was a big deal. So my other kids haven't really had that dedicated instruction, and I have paid for courses in the summertime and during breaks, but it's expensive and it's not available to all students. So I would say, like, if it were me, I would say find the time, make it happen, but of course, you guys have.
Well, I mean, I would
here.
like to have, like I say, we're not done here. I think certainly Superintendent Thomas and Dr. Ingalls has heard enough from the community. You've read, you've heard from them tonight, you've read the emails, you've heard sort of, at least from the board members that are here, what we're talking about. You've heard from Krista before about lots of hands-on. I don't know what the solution is. I know that you're working on it. All I can tell you is, I really would like to hear when you have sort of that input back from some of the teachers on how we can be consistent. If the decision is integration, well, let's make sure that it's consistently integrated and in the way that needs to be integrated, and it's not just and they're right, it's not just about, doing, it's about understanding what you're doing and why you're doing it and how the color wheel works and all that other kind of stuff, so.
And I think ultimately, even with our current STEAM teachers, you have some who are more artistic than others. You have some who understand that. So I think a commitment then comes from the district to provide some of that training and that opportunity for them to learn and
Yes.
to integrate.
Well, and that
begin-
can come through the PLCs.
And that comes through the
Right.
PLC work, and that's what I'm
So-
thrilled to hear that we sort of built the curriculum, and now, through the PLC process, need to get that incorporated and everybody on board and doing what they need to do, and the timing of that, and how quickly we can sort of get that done, because I think that is critical.
Madam Chair, just one of Tammy's comments that we've talked about integrating art for a long time. There's no more excuses. It's in
Right.
place now. We struggled with the science curriculum. It's in place now. Now we need to focus on the engineering, the math, and the art. We need to make sure it's incorporated.
I think that's what you're hearing.
Yes. The biggest challenge, and I hope you recognize it, and I've tried to portray this, is our challenge is to providing the best educational program for all 2,700 students. And that is the tricky part. There are some that love science, some that don't, some that love math, some that don't. But our job is to meet those expectations, provide the best educational program for our 1,200 elementary kids. And I believe that's the intent of all of us. And we will continue to refine and get better. I don't think one specific subject's going to make that big switch. It may help, but
Right.
we just need to look at it and see what we can. Integrating without adding time, can we look at what we do every day? That's the part that worries me, is right now is our schedule so tight that we've taken creativity away from our teachers. And that's why I don't want to add more. Let's find ways to provide that innovation and creativity. And it does, it has to come from them, and that's why these PLCs, they can work collaboratively. But I think our commitment is the best possible educational program we can for our community. I mean, that's why we're here. And we do listen. We listen to the teachers. We listen to our principals. Some changes are very unpopular, but they were made listening to our people.
Right.
And perfect example, and I hate to bring this up, would be fifth grade band. That came from our music teachers. So anyway, so we will continue to focus on this and work on this. And like I said, I appreciate very much the manner in which this has been brought forward.
No, I do too. I'm going to cut off comment at this point in time because we need to move on. I think we've heard certainly clearly from all of you. I hate to do that, but I really appreciate the discussion. I think this is healthy. So you know, what we can do, I assume that in a couple of months we'll meet back at the past and see what we've got. Obviously continue to willing to think outside the box in all areas, so. All right, we do need to move along. Back to school calendar is the next item on the discussion.
Madam Chair, members of the board, first of all, I apologize. It looks like the next bunch of items is just me, so I'll just stay up here and we'll keep going.
So you're just going to stay up here and talk? Okay.
Just a quick review of the calendar, and really the whole point of that is we will have new staff here next week. You're always welcome to come. We have I think it's Wednesday, we have a breakfast for them. I guess it's Wednesday the 14th. You're welcome to come, we introduce you. After that, Monday is a work day for our teachers. Tuesday, August 20th is
so Wednesday, sorry, give me that again. Wednesday at what time?
Wednesday at 7:30.
Good heavenly days.
8 o'clock would be fine. 7:30, we actually feed them. So you're welcome to come at 8 o'clock.
And that's here?
That's here in this room. There's lots of training going on. It's on this sheet. You're welcome to attend all of it. Probably the biggest training is when we bring all the certified staff back. That is Tuesday, August 20th. Tim Brown from Solution Tree will begin our training, staff development on PLC training. Wednesday, we'll continue with Jan Haig. And those are full days of training for our teachers. I do take a half hour on Tuesday and just kind of welcome them back and do the stuff we have to do. But you're welcome for those to attend those days. We do provide lunch for our staff on those 2 days, so you're welcome to come and have lunch with them. Thursday, we bring all the support staff back. We provide breakfast for them. You're welcome to come on that Thursday and again be introduced. And then probably the big day is school starts on Monday the next week. So that's really the back-to-school calendar. Just wanted to point that out.
Okay.
A lot of stuff going on. We did have a discussion about calendars, so we will come to some solution. I wish you could have seen everyone's faces when we said we want one calendar, because that's a big task.
Well,
maybe links to calendar, which may be the way to do it.
We want something that's a little more user-friendly for people, parents like me, on the district level. Even the school calendar, even if I have to go to an individual school calendar, there's a lot of stuff that is missing that we really wanted to
Well, and I think
better.
that's one of the solutions, and we'll keep working on it, is that there is a page that you can link to on our district website that has
I couldn't
different
find out when
links.
junior prom was, for Pete's sake. Merle, come on. I need to know when prom is. I know when to buy the dresses. No, he's not here, is he? Okay, Scott, it's you. Put the dang prom on the calendar.
Not too hard.
So that's all, just to make sure you knew you're all welcome to come to the training. It is very good training. Those are two top-notch, national recognized trainers that we're bringing to the entire certified staff on those 2
Come
days.
using the machine shop.
Machine shop, yeah.
You have to rent that or not?
We have a deal with the city.
Okay. It's a different environment.
It's part of the facilities sharing.
If you remember last year, we did it in Evanston Middle School, and we put a pad down to protect the floor. It just wasn't, it was very good training, but it wasn't the best environment. So that's why Machine Shop gives us lots of room, and a kitchen.
Right. And it's a different environment, which
Yes.
helps stimulate.
Yep. It's like a retreat.
Yeah.
Yes. How come we don't get the machine?
Yeah.
Okay, next would be the strategic plan. Our goals, and I know that you were going to work on those a little.
As promised, Madam Chair, members of the board, I did try to incorporate A lot of the stuff you talked about. Please remember that our principals, we don't meet with them until next week. We've kind of given them this week, so they haven't really had a chance to look at the changes I've suggested. If you look at the board goals, I try to incorporate everything, and once you try to incorporate anything, it may be too big, but this is what I took from our discussion, is the school board is committed to the Pathway to Excellence, which is the high reliability school framework. If you're not familiar with that, again, it used to be included as our 3 goals and the standards for each of those 3 goals. 3 goal levels from high reliability schools. Fundamentals of professional learning communities, that was part of the discussion that the principals had with you, and I'll throw those up. These are the 1, 3, 6. Professional learning communities, the number 1 fundamental purpose is our schools is learning, not teaching. 3 big ideas is to focus on learning, collaborative culture, results orientation, and then the 6 essentials of a PLC is to focus on learning, collaborative culture, with a focus on learning for all, collective inquiry into best practice and current reality, action orientation, learning by doing, a commitment to continuous improvement, and results orientation. So that's what those components are in that. Standard assessment work, K-12, links to the PLC work with the goal of providing a guaranteed and valid curriculum. So those last 2 points, I think, we're discussing items that we've had for a while. Do I need to make it bigger?
It would help, but that's okay. I think, just talking about it helps. There you go.
Okay, and so that's a little different goal than we've had before. It really incorporates not necessarily a goal, it's a commitment. This is what we're committed to. This is what we want to support and enhance. You can see the communication plan is still there, and you can link to it through this. Emphasis on school safety and security. I heard we want to work on that level 2, which is effective teaching in every classroom. And then this is the different one that I try to incorporate. Focus on life skills, which includes citizenship, positive behavior support.
Which I think is part of the safety and security.
It could be, but I think you guys wanted it specified. If not, again, this is for you to change.
Right, no, but we want it
Anti-bullying work,
specified.
yeah. Healthy living strategies, accountability for our students, parents, and staff. And really what that means is that they're held accountable to those life skills and those citizenships, I guess the rules and regs, proper behavior, that was kind of emphasized. So that's kind of what I've taken from our discussion. So we can add to, we can take away. The principals will end up going through the district goals, but even the little discussions we had, I changed the goals a little bit. On behavior and attendance, listening to what the board wanted to focus on. The attendance is not necessarily a specific improvement rate. It is that as a district, we'll continue to focus on the importance of attendance and student and parents' expectations.
Well, and it's inherent in the high reliability schools.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so part of that is just a little different focus. The focus of now is to make sure to explain what poor attendance pattern does to your student, or to you as a student.
Right.
Behavior expectations, again, made a change. That behavior is identified, taught, modeled with core values in mind for students, parents, staff, and welcome visitors. In other words, that we do have expectations of behavior and everyone's held accountable. We did have training today on our new student management system with behavior, so again, we're trying some new things. Those were some of the benefit or changes I've made. Please go through this. I changed a lot of this just to focus on exactly what we're doing, took out language from the old. This will go through with our principals, and they will help modify it to meet to what we're doing. We did talk about the RTI and stuff, multi-tiered system of support. We incorporated the personalized learning. If you look at that, this whole critical commitment, it's to an effective instructional strategy in the classroom. Basically, that's level 2 in high reliability schools. That's exactly what we're working on this year, so maybe that needs to kind of mirror what level 2 is. So not to reinvent the wheel. You can see a lot of the rest have not been changed yet, but they'll go through the principles. So what I would like to do is meet with the principals, actually send you this document. If you get some time before our next board meeting, is give me some comments and suggestions. what you would like to see on this, what it reflects, what you're committed to as a board. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Thank you for listening. Okay, next we have, wait, I lost my place. D, yes. The student activities guidebook.
As part of...
The parent...
Yeah, as part of all of this, and the kind of the things you talked about, I wanted to have you take a look at this, and really this is more for your information than anything else, is Mr. O'Neill has put this together, and most of these policies and procedures have always been in place, but maybe not written and available. Now it covers basically everything we do and how we do it. This is a guide, I believe, for our students and parents, but also our coaches. There are some expectations built in here about supervision. This is what parents can expect of our coaches. This is what athletes can expect of our coaches. It is written about how you interact with a coach, how you don't interact with the coach.
We could have maybe avoided some issues this last year.
And this is very well done, but I'm just bringing it to you to look through. If you have questions, please contact Mr. O'Neill or myself. This, like I said, is not new policy. It's not even a policy. It's just
But it's nice to have
procedures. Yes.
It's nice to have it all together, and I'm assuming will be available online.
And they'll probably get a hard copy.
And everybody, the participants will get hard copies.
It will definitely be
We'll
available.
have it online for everybody to look at, and this is nice to have it sort of all together in one place. Very nice. Okay. The next is a discussion of policy JGD, suspension or expulsion of students.
This is not a first reading. This is more, I just want to let you know why it's even here. You're familiar that Wyoming School Board does send us updates, and the legislature did make some changes to the suspension statute. They're very mild, and basically it deals with notification. And so as I looked at the recommendation from Wyoming School Boards, again, I thought it was pretty concise. Ours isn't bad, I just think it needs to be updated. As I was looking at JGD, it references other things, so I started looking around. That's why JG is also on here, student discipline.
Okay.
And the reason for that is JG references corporal punishment.
Oh, good heavens.
Basically, we only do 3 behavior. We corporal punishment, we suspend, or we expel, and that's not accurate. So it's we do a little bit more than that. So our corporal punishment, we do have a policy dealing with corporal punishment, but it's not what you think. It's basically, we don't do it.
Right.
And so to reference it in another policy doesn't make sense.
It's time to update.
Yeah, so that's all this is for your information. You can see JGD draft. That, I took the Wyoming School Board's, meshed it with ours, and that's what that is my shot at updating our policy with what Wyoming School Board suggests. It's pretty slight. Right now, according to statute, before the legislature changed it, we had to notify parents within 24 hours that their student had been suspended with the possibility of expulsion.
Correct.
The challenge to that, sometimes we could not make contact with parents. But yet the law was pretty clear, you have to. So do you bring the kid in the next day when, especially if he's a threat to the school? We couldn't do that. Now they've loosened it. The expectation is a good faith effort to notify within 24 hours, but if there's reasons not to. So really that's the only main change in the legislation. But because it referenced other policies, that's why we're updating the discipline policy. And I haven't even made an attempt at JG yet, but it'll be easy.
Okay.
Because the corporal punishment is really the only issue in there. We'll just update it with what we actually do, and more than anything else, it'll follow the positive behavior supports or student handbooks, however we want to read that, and I'll work that out with the principals too. So you will see both of these for first reading next month.
Okay.
So if you go through them and you have questions and comments, please just email me, or I don't think anyone calls anymore, but you're welcome to call.
No, we'll email you. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Perfect. All right, next on the agenda is any public comments. We've sort of heard public comment already on the one issue. I don't know if there are any other public here, unless Sheila, you got something, but
Public's gone.
public's gone, so I'm going to skip on to action items, and we have personnel matters. And Jaren, just so you know, it's still doing it, and now I can't even get the attachments, so we'll talk after. It's still dying on me.
Madam Chair, members of the board, personnel recommendation number 1 is to accept the resignations of Stuart Perry and Holly Robbins. Stuart is a certified teacher at North, and Holly Robbins is a social worker at UNM Meadows. We recommend that you approve those resignations.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the resignations as presented.
Second that motion.
Okay, we'll take the second by Dave. Any discussion on the motion? Just a question I have, Mr. Perry was the robotics
Yes.
super, I'm assuming we'll find someone
We will.
else to do that? Okay.
Is there a penalty for the late?
Is
There
it-
can be. The way our policy reads is if you provide notice from May 15th to June 31st, it's a $500 penalty, unless there is circumstance. The board can do anything you want.
Well, is
my-
there any reason not to impose the penalty?
My recommendation is we don't.
No.
I just think at this point, they both found jobs late. Again, that's just my recommendation is,
They've been good employees, too.
They have been.
I mean, we
And
started
again,
our
it doesn't-
robotics program, did a lot of
if
work
they
there.
purposely withheld their resignation to hurt the district, that's why that policy was written. I don't think that's the case in either of these situations. If they weren't happy here and they went somewhere else, our blessings. And if they were happy here, we'll miss them, you know, how that works.
Okay, so the motion is to approve the recommendation without the penalty, is that?
Exactly.
Yes.
All right, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries.
Madam Chair, I recommend that you approve the certified contracts of the following individual. Megan Smith is a speech-language pathologist, and I can't tell you, it is awesome to find a speech-language pathologist this time of the year. Matt and Dr. Ingles had to go to Chicago to find her, but we're excited
Away
to
from
have.
the shootings, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Okay.
So we recommend Megan Smith. Victoria Kelm Foy will be a social worker, and she will replace Holly Robbins. Shelby Powell will be a 5th grade teacher. She will replace Stuart Perry, and then Megan Young will be a resource teacher. Again, we're very fortunate to find a resource teacher this time of the year. So these are really kudos to the individuals that shook the bushes and found these people. So very excited to get them. You can see their contract and their amounts. We recommend that you approve these 4 contracts.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Second.
Jenny beat you to it? Okay, motion by Jenny, second by Jimmy. Jenny made the motion.
I'm the second.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the contracts as presented. Any discussion on these? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, seeing none, the motion carries.
Third and
Next.
final, we recommend that you approve the related service contracts as listed. Nothing new. The organization we've used multiple times. These represent students, so we keep them confidential. They're not to exceed a certain amount. You can see in the contracts, I didn't put a specific amount on there. There is another one added, which is for Dr. Steve Cook. This is a positive thing, too. This is a grant-funded program to provide some social work.
I'm very
at
happy to hear
Horizon.
about that one.
So-
That one makes me just tickled pink,
We
as you
recommend that you
well know.
approve those, yes.
Okay.
The delay was waiting for the grant. We couldn't offer.
I am thrilled, because this, I think, is, again, a critical part of our safety program, so I'm absolutely tickled pink.
Yeah.
All right, do we have a motion to approve those related services contracts?
So moved.
Motion by Kay, second by Jenny. Any discussion on these, other than Jamie's very happy? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. Okay, now we have the Wyoming High School Athletic Association, I'm assuming, member, membership application and activity enrollment.
We do this annually in August, and this is really what allows us to have extracurricular activities. You can see from the form that it's based on the number of enrolled, and it's per dollar as linked by WHSAA. So we recommend that you approve this agreement as written.
And we've got the budget, we plan on it, so
Oh,
this
yes,
is no issue.
We do this every year.
Okay.
Madam Chairman, I move that we approve the Wyoming High School Activities Association membership application and activity enrollment.
Second.
Second by
I need
Caleb.
acronyms.
And well done, Dave. All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. Okay. Board table, or board round table, any comments? Other than to say, we did take a tour of the high school before we started the meeting today. Very excited with how that looks, and I think the kids are going to be excited. I did make the comment that I'm really bummed they took my ability to slide down the rails. They took that away. But
Just short term.
yeah, that really bums me out. But no, it's a vast improvement in terms of that open gathering place upstairs, and quite frankly, the gathering place in the main entry with the cake. I'm really excited to see how that goes, and you know, kudos to you guys. I know this has been a rough summer, but it looks like we're going to get the vast majority done in time, so.
Again, Madam Chair, if I may, just kudos. Right now, we have a major project, between $750,000 and $850,000 at Evanston Middle School. We have a major project at Horizon. We have several major projects at the high school. And then, all the other things we do as normal operation in our schools during the summer. Our maintenance department, hats off to them, coordinating this, our facilities department. So, job well done. We'll just keep our fingers crossed that stuff we ordered will get here in a timely fashion. We
Well,
have-
and having the good news that some of this may be picked up by the state now as part of major maintenance, that was very good news, and so that's,
I mentioned at the retreat that we are going to paint the outside of the high school. The red and the blue, we're going to make it one color, I believe. Since it's such a major project, the state did approve that as a major maintenance project, so that won't have to come out of carryover.
Where are you painting?
You know those red overhangs that are starting?
We had them all red except for two
Yeah.
of them.
So now they're going to be red.
Yeah,
We're
good.
repainting them.
That's my color.
And then I'm trying to think what the other project was that possibly will come out of major maintenance. But we're working with the state on that. Which one was that, Jaron?
Which ones?
that's okay. The good news is we're getting some money back.
Yeah, well,
That's-
and I guess the bad news is we'll still spend it on stuff for the high school. So there will be some
Well,
money from carryover
But
spent
we're
on the
also
high school.
getting, you know, the roof done at Horizon, the roof done obviously at EMS, and
Every surface at the high school will be new.
yeah, it looks really nice. It's
They take
exciting.
care of it.
Yep. Hope
Any
it
other-
lasts another 15, 20 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, sorry.
Okay, any other roundtable from anyone? All right,
Move to adjourn.
there you go. That's what I was looking for.
Did I get a second?
Anybody want to second that one? Second. All those in favor? Aye. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you. Hey, Jaron, I'm going to show you what it's doing to make me crazy. Yeah, he's going to turn the mics on first. No, you're fine.
I have a story. Call it cookie.
This needs to go this way, sorry. So turn the mics off first, and then you can come look at my computer.
Thank you again.
Now, don't give all the surprises away at high school. Save some.
Yeah.
Well, it's not totally finished yet.
That's true. It'll look so much better, but.